And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Around the Base with Bubba Mo, a special episode 100. There were doubters, Mo. There were doubters that said we couldn't do it, but we did it.
We did it.
Maybe 100 more. But check out Mo on Twitter at Boston_Mo, the podcast at Around Bases Pod, and I am at BDentric. And before I say hi to you, Mo, we have a special guest for episode 100. He's been on the show a couple times, did a World Series preview with me when Mo was on some lovely honeymoon in some tropical island. He's also done some playoff previews with me. You can find him on Twitter at Casey Boguslaw. Casey, how we doing, man?
I'm great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us again. But Mo, how are things these days?
Things are good. I mean, the Celtics are down by like 80, so that's not great. So I got that on in the background. But other than that, things are awesome.
Things are awesome. All right. So Casey's with us today as we're going to start our divisional previews. As the White Sox fan that he is, we thought we'd give him the luxury of previewing the AL Central with us. He'll go over some signings and extensions and whatnot with us real quick. And then after that, we will preview some fantasy baseball relievers. So let's kick it off, guys, with Marwin Gonzalez. Goes to the Minnesota Twins. I'll be honest, it surprised me a little bit that this was the landing spot. Super utility guy. They seem like they had a lot of people already there, though. 2 years, $21 million to play for the Twins. What's your thoughts on Marwin in Minnesota, Casey?
I think this shows, I was definitely surprised as well, but they've been kind of quietly making moves on the border all offseason, and we kind of want somebody to rise up in the AL Central to at least give the Indians a little bit of a run for their money. And it seems like the Twins kind of have done that this year, this offseason, bringing in Nelson Cruz, among others. But this kind of seems like, I guess, like the final piece, at least position-wise, on that side, that it really just kind of gives them that incredible depth piece, a little bit of Miguel Sano insurance as well if his comeback doesn't work out so great. Of course, that's what they hope happens, is that Sano is the third baseman for the season. But Marwin will do exactly what he did with the Astros. He can play literally anywhere, any of the 7 infield or outfield positions. So it's a cool piece, and I think that it's showing that the Twins are going to be competitive in the AL Central this year.
What about you, Mo?
Yeah, same thing. It's a really, really good spot for him because he is going to be able to play everywhere. And everyone thinks, they were kind of set in the lineup. I'm not a CJ Cron guy. Polanco's coming off the PED suspension. I know they just re-signed him and Kepler, but he's going to play 5 days a week minimum. I mean, that's what he's going to do, and he's going to get his 140 games. Now, is he what he was in 2017, batting .303? No, he's probably more of a 250, 260 guy, but he's going to give you 15 to 20 homers, and he's going to be able to play all the field. And like Casey said, Miguel Sano insurance, which we know right now is huge for them. And also, they've got Jonathan Scope on a 1-year deal. So they've got him for 3 years, and he's going to be able to play second base next year depending on what happens with Nick Gordon and Royce Lewis and their future too. So they've got insurance not only for this year, but for the next couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. I was telling someone the other day that the thing that's going to probably happen the most with Marwin and his super utility, he's going to play like 4, 5, 6 positions each week. It's like literally this guy gets a day off, Marwin play over here, this guy, so on and so forth. So in that respect, I like the deal a lot. It was just interesting seeing where the offseason started for them and where they are now. I was hoping Marwin would go to a couple other places, but Minnesota it is, and he'll be good there. And if worse comes to worse, next year he gets traded for cheap, and Twins do what they do best, start over.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to the next one. This one probably be pretty quick because I don't think he's as big as Marwin Gonzalez, but it's Josh Harrison. He's going to sign with the Tigers. He's probably going to lead off for them, so it's not a bad little get for them. And at the same time, rebuilding, could trade him later. But let's start with you, Bubba. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, this is simply a cheap deal, a tradable deal. He fills a need for them, gives them a little bit more security compared to just throwing guys out there that might not be ready yet. Again, another guy that would have been like a really good fit for like a Dodgers team or a kind of a more of a contender looking for a utility infielder type guy. It'll work with Detroit. It kind of makes Nick Castellanos' value a little better because at least he has someone that'll get on base in front of him. But overall, not much. I thought he'd actually get more money than this, but he basically got the Ian Kinsler treatment. But, yeah, that's about it.
Casey?
Yeah, you hope that you hope for the 2017 Josh Harrison if you're Detroit, because then all you really want to do is flip him. But he did not have a good year last year. He came out at the beginning of the offseason last year saying how he needed to be on a contender and he didn't want to be in Pittsburgh if they weren't going to contend and trade Kutch. Well, now he's in Detroit, which is a worse position than he was last year with Pittsburgh. Obviously, I think he's probably hoping, though, that he will be flipped to a contender if he does have a solid year like he did in 17. So I think that's where he's kind of put his hopes, and hopefully it works out for himself and the Tigers, that if he has a good start to the season, he'll get flipped.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. So we got some extensions. We started talking about them last week. We're seeing more and more of them, based on kind of the world we live in when it comes to free agency, and just it's good to see these guys getting paid for their cheap years, as some people would say, their arbitration years. One of them we just saw the other day, Aaron Hicks got 7 years, $70 million, or no, yeah, 7 years, $70 million. So getting about $10 million a year for to play with the Yankees. Pretty good deal for him, considering the Yankees traded him for John Ryan Murphy to catch. Mo, what's your thoughts on Hicks? You're going to get to see him for 7 more years now in center field at Yankee Stadium.
Oh, I'm shaking in my boots with that one. No, but for real, like it's the Red Sox Twitter kind of had fun with it because he's really only had a year and a half of good baseball. When he was with the Twins, he was coming up as sort of a top prospect. And in 2015, all of a sudden he just wasn't walking anymore. Again, the Yankees took a shot on him and he was terrible in 2016. And then something clicked. And now you saw what happened last year. And, he's up there in terms of, if you're just looking at WAR. I mean, he had 3.3 WAR and only 361 plate appearances and a 4.9 WAR in 581, so almost a full season last season. But I mean, they, like you said, John Ryan Murphy. What a great trade by Brian Cashman. Again, he really is killing it. And I don't hate this as much, but at the same time, I'm a little skeptical because he has had injury history and it has been only a year and a half. So they're committing to him. It's not money that's going to break the bank for the Yankees or really kill the luxury tax. But are we going to look at this contract 4 or 5 years down the road when they got to re-sign Judge? They still have Stanton's contract, and he's in his mid-30s, and they got to re-sign Glaber and Andujar if they continue to do what they do. It could be bad for them if he continues his injury history and isn't what he is over a year and a half sample.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on this one, Casey?
My first thought when I saw was, he turns 30 in October, so he's already quite up there. So 7 years you're going to be paying a guy that you're expecting to be your center fielder up into his upper 30s. And, you mentioned the WAR value. A lot of that does come from a very great, solid defense that he plays in the, the spacious parts of the Yankee Stadium. So it'll be interesting to see how that age curve goes for him. Obviously, the Yankees feel pretty confident that he's going to be at least, I guess, able to probably play a corner spot. Although you mentioned with Judge and Stanton, maybe the corner spots aren't as available for him. So I think that the money was given to him certainly to be the center fielder for at least the near future. But you're wondering kind of when that age regression starts to happen with him. And I guess the Yankees are pretty confident because they signed this guy for a long time in an age that we're seeing that the free agent market is not hitting on a lot with the guys that are out there. But the Yankees kind of zagged where the others are zigged. And you mentioned Cashman. Got to kind of have to give him confidence in the moves that he makes because he keeps hitting. But this one, I'll give it a little bit of certainly there's some risk involved, but I think Hicks is a pretty solid player, so both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, see, this one's weird to me because I like the way he plays on the field when he's on the field, like you guys are saying, and he's getting paid and everyone's happy. But it was like 3 or 4 episodes I was sitting there yelling basically that Whit Merrifield got screwed. Whit Merrifield's 30 years old and you got a 4-year, $16.5 million deal. He's basically the same age as Aaron Hicks. I think he's more valuable than Aaron Hicks, but that might be me talking out of school here. But that's why I really think that Whit Merrifield, he took one on the chin here, and Aaron Hicks is sitting back now, and it's working out pretty well for him. That's just my 2 cents on that one.
Yeah, the last thing on this is right now Aaron Hicks is really an analytical darling. I mean, he can play defense. He gets on base. I mean, that's really what most teams are looking for and what people are getting paid for, which is why, when you hear the Bryce Harper arguments, you hear like, well, his average, he only 249 last year. Well, yeah, but he gets on base a shit ton. It is what it is. And when he's 35 and when Stanton's at it, it looks to me like it's going to be ugly in 4 or 5 years. But if they get a World Series or 2 out of these guys, then it'll be worth it. Let's get to the next one. We get two more. This one came out of nowhere this morning. The Rockies extended Nolan Arenado, and first off, it was Bobby Nightingale, our boy Bob, who posted first, and I didn't want to take anything. Then all of a sudden, Jeff Passan posted, and I'm watching MLB Now or Hot Stove, and Ken Rosenthal got on there, so I was all good with it. Looks like a 7-year, $234 million extension with the ultimate 3-year opt-out right before the new CBA. Casey, your thoughts?
Of course, my first thought is to my White Sox, and that's another one away from them. But no, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence. Right, yeah, I tweeted about that immediately because that's our consolation prize. But no, I didn't think Arenado was even going to hit the market. I was, of course, surprised by the size of the contract and I guess the timing. But I did think that he was going to be a Rocky for life. I mean, why wouldn't he be? That guy enjoys Coors as much as anyone ever has. And usually we see these big Rockies hitters, Larry Walker spent a bunch of his career there. Andres Galarraga, all those guys, they kind of find a home there. Todd Helton, that's the all-time kind of Rocky guy that, if you find such a comfortable spot there, why wouldn't you want to just, I mentioned age curve on Hicks. The age curve's not even going to bother Arenado because he's going to be playing in Coors for the home games for probably close to the rest of his career, I guess, if he doesn't take that opt-out. But this, I think, I don't want to open it to that wide of a conversation, but it is cool to see a guy make a ton of money that, in an offseason where we haven't seen a lot of teams spending a bunch of money. The Rockies went ahead and did it. I make fun of the Rockies probably more than any other team, maybe except the White Sox, on Twitter because I just don't agree with a lot of moves that they have made in the last couple of years, especially because they've had a contender here. But this is a smart move. Nailed down the hometown guy. This is the guy that their fan base obviously, crushes on. A great move for the Rockies, and of course, a great move for Arenado.
Yeah, Bubba.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. It's the first thing I thought about, and it might sound kind sad, but we get to see a ball player likely, play a whole career with one team, which we don't get to see anymore. We grew up watching guys do it all the time, but since like Jeter, I didn't think we'd ever see one again. But this will lock him down for a while. Yes, there's the opt out. There's a good chance it still doesn't happen, but at the same time, he's getting what he deserves. He's been a Gold Glover all 6 seasons. He's been in the bigs. I saw a tweet somewhere like the last 4 years in MVPs. He's been in the top 5 in the MVP voting in the National League. This guy's awesome. Like the glove he has at third, the hitting he does, Coors or not Coors, he's amazing. The other thing I thought of immediately is Scott Boras and Bryce Harper are licking their chops now because they thought they had to beat Machado's deal. Well, now they get to beat Arenado's deal. So they're sitting there happy campers right now, going to get paid big bucks as expected. But I'm really happy for Arenado. Like you said, it kind of came out of nowhere. I know there was like rumors of them talking. There's rumors of possibly getting traded and whatnot. To see it actually come down this quickly, I think it's really awesome. And I was also surprised because I thought when they extended Blackman recently, I thought there was no chance Arenado would get paid. So maybe they locked up all their money, which is fine, but at least they spent it on Arenado, which I'm happy with.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to it other than the fact that he is 100%, if he continues to do what he has done his whole career, 100% opting out after 3 years. Now, I'm not saying he's not going to re-sign with the Rockies, but I'm saying that he will opt out because the players think they're going to get what they want in 2022, and that is more revenue from the owners being spent on players, sort of like the NBA did a few years ago, where all of a sudden Austin Rivers is getting like $60 million and he's the worst basketball player on the earth. So that's what's going to happen in 2022, 2023 is the players, all of a sudden, the money's going to go up a little bit, in my opinion. I'm not a business guy, but they're going to fight for it. And I hope it's not a lockout, but he will opt out. He'll probably stay with the Rockies, but he'll just add a year or two to it to get more guaranteed money. And other than that, it's a win-win for both sides. There's no other opinion to have.
And the last extension we saw here the last couple of days, this one, again, to me, came out of nowhere. I didn't really think this was happening, but 4 years, $68 million extension for Miles Mikolas. Apparently 1 year back from Korea. The Cardinals liked him quite a bit to extend him and give him some nice money. Buys out his last year of free agency, takes him through 2023. What's your thoughts on this one, Casey?
Yeah, maybe with the Carlos Martinez news that kind of dropped today, this is the Cardinals' way of responding to it. That this, Mikolas is going to be their ace moving forward. I think. Well, of course, there's the young guys coming up here, but he's at least going to be, I guess, your quote unquote veteran guy. Obviously, spent some time overseas, like you said, but he's going to be the number one guy. I wouldn't be shocked if he is the opening day starter here coming up in a couple weeks. He had a great season last year. Came off gangbusters, was really good at the beginning of the season. You thought maybe it was going to be kind of something that the league would catch up on him, but had his best months in August and September. So the Cardinals really like what they see. They have this plethora of young starting pitching, but they got this guy that they just cemented down to, I think, be the ace, at least until the young guys are ready to take the throne. But I was surprised as well, but I think maybe it had something to do with the C-Mart news as well.
What about you, Mo?
Yeah, really good money. I mean, it's basically $17 million a year. And I think the big thing here is, number one, we know Wainwright's pretty much done. He's not going to give them much. He's almost 38 years old. Michael Walker's a free agent after this year. You mentioned the Carlos Martinez news. So really, it's just Jack Flaherty and then maybe Alex Reyes. So they really didn't have a choice to lock him down, because if Alex Reyes, we hope he is what we think he is, but if his arm doesn't improve, if Martinez's arm doesn't improve, and they didn't sign Mikolas and he goes to free agency next year, you're just looking at Jack Flaherty and a bunch of other guys. So they really had to get this done. And again, it's sort of like the Arenado deal. I think it's a win-win, because maybe he's not as good as last year, but I don't think he's going to regress that much to make him all of a sudden like a 4 or 5 starter. I think, like Casey said, he's probably their ace right now. And then when Jack Flaherty, really does what he's supposed to do, he's probably the 2 in either way, or 1A and 1B. But either way, they had to do it.
Yeah, I think the most exciting part about it is watching Cardinals Nation in an uproar. They didn't get Machado. Now Arenado's off the books. They kind of feel like you, Casey, because then they're like, well, now Goldie hopefully gets extended, but go buy Harper. No, they're not going to do that. They'll end up with like Gio Gonzalez or Dallas Keuchel. So it's really fun watching the whole kind of domino effect in St. Louis right now.
But they should be really good, so it doesn't matter. All right, let's get to the AL Central preview with Casey. We're going to kind of go back and forth here. We got a couple topics. Could go a little free flow for some of the things, especially the White Sox, of course, based off of how much steam we see coming out of Casey's ears. All right, let's start with the Cleveland Indians, who everyone knows is the big favorite here for the most part. I think you could say probably 4 out of the 5 of the playoff teams in the AL, sort of like last year, are going to make it again, but it's baseball, so you never know. So like I said, let's start with Cleveland. The Francisco Lindor situation isn't great right now. Obviously, he's out 9 weeks, and it's a calf injury, so it could linger into the season. Casey, is this going to be you think? I know we're not doctors here, but do you think this will be a big problem for him throughout the season?
It doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy, that's for sure. I think especially with the way that the Indians are set up, which is more or less a stars and scrubs type of roster, with Lindor and Jose Ramirez just, obviously I think head and shoulders above the rest of the lineup. You miss one of those guys, I think your run production is going to go down quite a bit. And if he's not going to have, really any spring training. So he's going to be trying to kind of start his conditioning right as, in April when the season's starting. And, it's tough. Those games in Cleveland are incredibly cold in April. They're playing in 30-degree weather. And if that hamstring is tight, it's not going to get any looser playing in that weather. It does not make me feel comfortable at all. I mean, the Indians are so far projected above anyone else in this division, but I think that everything that we hear that comes out of this Cleveland camp that has come to this offseason, whether it's a trade or a lack of spending money or the fact their bullpen is not as good as it used to be, this was just kind of the icing on the top that I said, okay, Lindor being out for the beginning of the season definitely opens the door. And like we mentioned before with the Marwin news, and I know we'll get to the Twins later, I think the Twins see that the door is open, maybe even specifically with this Lindor news. And I don't like it at all. My panic meter is high with the Lindor injury. I think that it's going to be, I think, worse than optimists would want them to believe.
Bubba?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not a big fan of this. A guy that, he's gotten bigger the last couple of years. The power numbers have gone up. Still running, but you look at his numbers last year. He got the steals, but his overall success rate was not ideal. And now you throw a calf injury into it. He's going to miss spring training. So we've talked about it before. You guys aren't ready for the season. We saw how it affected them last year. I'm not saying it's going to be that bad on Lindor. He's still a really good ball player. But like Casey was saying, this roster just isn't the same scary roster as before. You got like Jonas Martin and, you're hoping Jake Bauers takes off, Tyler Naquin, Roberto Perez, Greg Allen, Yu Chang is the projected shortstop right now with Francisco Lindor out. That is not murderer's row to scare anybody. And the crazy part is on Pacoda from Baseball Prospectus, they're still expected to win 96 ball games. They're still expected to finish 14 games in front of the Twins. I don't see it, and that's kind of what Casey was talking about. We'll talk about it more later, but I think it's a big deal. He could come back and be great, but at the best, he's missing the first 2 weeks. I think it might be a month or so, but before he's up and running into full strength, it might be over a month. So I think it's a big deal.
Let me follow up on this one real quick. Obviously, Lindor out. Is there any? I know there's baseball Twitter, fantasy Twitter, however you want to call it, has been talking about Jose Ramirez and the struggles that he had with breaking balls at the end of last season. Is that a thought for you, Casey, or that was just a month and a half of just baseball happening, regression happening a little bit?
I think the bigger worry is that who's protecting Jose Ramirez. I don't know whether he usually hits behind Lindor, but he had Encarnacion behind him last year, and obviously that's a great guy to be protecting you. He's not there. Carlos Santana is certainly not the same guy. Obviously Jake Bauers is not the same guy. There's no one behind him. He's going to be seeing a lot of breaking balls again this season because if teams have to walk him, so be it. They're not scared of anyone behind him. I'm worried about Jose Ramirez. I'm scrub roster, especially because it's just even fewer stars and more scrubs as Bubba listed off those guys. I think that they improved the defense quite a bit, but it's certainly becoming at the expense of the offense. The entire outfield, I don't think any of them can hit the guys that are projected to start the season. So this lineup is just Lindor and Ramirez. I mean, Carlos Santana obviously is a professional hitter, but without protection, I really worry about Ramirez, from a fantasy standpoint and from a real life one.
Bobby, you worried about him real quick?
I'm not as worried about the off-speed stuff. I'd be more worried about what Casey was talking about there because, it is very scary on what's actually sitting there around him. It is disgustingly bad. I don't mind Carlos Santana, but like Casey was saying, it's no Edwin Encarnacion. You got Jason Kipnis in front of you who's, fine and all, but it's not the same threat we've seen in years past. So I'd be worried in that respect.
All right, let's get to this next one. This one's pretty easy. I don't have to really set it up at all. Will one of the starters be traded at some point during the season, Bubba?
I know I could take the easy way out and say it depends on how they start the season, but I think even if they're contending, if they can do it, they will. Because if they want to do it in the preseason, why wouldn't they do it in the middle of the season? They're really looking to rebuild, which I still can't wrap my head around. It's like you look at the windows for certain teams these days. Go for it while you can, and then maybe tear it down and start over. But I wouldn't be shocked. I still think, even if the Dodgers get Harper I see a pitcher going to LA. They made a move to get one last year. Every offseason or mid-season, they're one of the biggest teams rumored to be getting a starting pitcher. So, I would go with yes. I don't know exactly who. I've always thought it would be Kluber, but I think at least one will be taken off by the deadline.
It's either Kluber or Bauer because they're not trading. They just signed Carrasco and they're not trading Clevenger and Bieber with the money that they're made. So I guess if you had to pick one of those two, which one are you going to pick?
It's Kluber. I think it's Kluber, but I think you get a bigger return for Kluber since Bauer's going to be going free here pretty soon. But that's just me.
Yeah, Casey.
I don't think they make a move this season. I think that. With the Carrasco signing, I thought some of those rumors about them moving kind of at least slowed down a little bit. I mean, obviously Trevor Bauer comes with a little bit of intangible stuff that maybe the franchise doesn't totally agree with, and we know that he's not going to re-sign with the Indians. So, there's I guess a lesser of a point in keeping him around, but. And I'm kind of getting in front of I know another item, a bullet point on our lineup, our agenda here, but I think Trevor Bauer is going to have a really, really good year. And if he's having a really good year, I don't know if the Indians will want to move him because they'll think just kind of like, what do we have here if we're not going to be trading the Cy Young front runner or something like that? I'll agree with Bubba that if anyone has moved is Kluber, but I think Kluber just kind of means too much to the franchise as well. And I think the only way that they would want to move Kluber is if he has a bad season, and then with his value low, why would they move him? If they were going to move him, they would have moved him this offseason. And I think we're just getting too close to opening day, and I think Kluber stays an Indian all season.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make a trade. As much as they need hitting, if you're going for it and you think your window is this low that you've spent so little money because you're so worried about what's going to happen the next few years, they probably missed an opportunity because all the Kluber to Yankees talk, they probably missed that opportunity. That was probably the play to that was probably the way to go and go get a Clint Frazier or an Esteban Florial, someone like that. That was probably the move. I know I joked after they signed Machado, the Padres would go after Bauer, especially with all the stuff that happened in his arbitration hearing and whatnot. But yeah, I think Bauer's going to have a tremendous year too. I'm a big Carrasco guy, as I said on the podcast last week to Bubba, and they signed him down. But I thought that there could have been a possibility that it could have been Bauer to the Padres for maybe a Hunter Renfroe and another guy or two. But yeah, with them being in contention and PECOTA having them winning 96 games, winning the division by 14 games, whether you think they're crazy or not, they're not going to make a move. Last one, we know Brad Hand's very good. Outside of him, Casey, is this bullpen really bad, or are we just not seeing it?
I think it's really bad. I think the Tyler Clippard giving him a minor league deal is kind of tells you everything that you need to know. I assume Clippard's going to make the major league roster just because what else do they have? It's been a long fall from that 2016 bullpen that went to the World Series. That was probably one of the better bullpens that we've seen in a long time, but they are all gone. And yeah, Brad Hand's at least the ninth inning guy. Adam Simber was good before the trade, and then he really kind of struggled in Cleveland. He was awesome in San Diego. Maybe he gets some of that back, but there's no names from that 2016 team left. It's crazy that there's been that much turnover in 3 years, but no, it's bad. And that's going to cost them a bunch of games, just like it cost them a bunch last year. I was looking at Baseball Ref that, they won 91 last year. Their Pythagorean was 98 because, they had a pretty good offense. And then of course their starting pitching was awesome. That bullpen just kind of did them in a ton and lost them a bunch of games that they should have won. And I think that they might even be a little bit worse, obviously, with no Andrew Miller, even, the Andrew Miller that was okay last year when he was playing. He's definitely, he's not going to be there at all. No, this is a bad bullpen. It's going to cost them quite a few games and open that AL Central door a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's bad. Like you said, Brad Hand, when I saw that the other day that they went and signed Tyler Clippard, I was like, okay. And then I looked at their thing, I'm like, okay, that's actually a really good move because it's that bad. It's like he's actually going to be relevant. Like he might get like 50 plus appearances in that bullpen. That tells you everything you need to know. It's bad. It's really bad. I guess the only saving grace I'll give it is if Danny Salazar comes back. When he comes back, you could throw him in there, and that'll help out a ton because the kid's got electric stuff. We all know that. I just don't know if he's got an arm that can withstand a starting job. He's almost the Cardinal or the Indians version of Carlos Martinez. So that'll help out a lot. It's just a matter of what capacities he come back in. But yeah, it's overall really bad. Again, I do not know how PECOTA has him projected to win 96 baseball games.
Yeah, they do have Oliver Perez too, but obviously he's just a lefty specialist.
Stop it.
He's only going to pitch 30 innings, maybe one well, I don't know if they bring the new rules in, then he has to pitch way more than that. But anyways, I got nothing else on this. It's Brad Hand. Imagine if they don't trade Mejia for him last year and where they're at. They would have had to bring Cody Allen back, and then we're wondering how the hell they're going to win 90 because there's no chance.
Yeah, bad news stuff. Let's move over to the Minnesota Twins. We already talked Marwin Gonzalez going there. But more importantly to me, it's going to be interesting. We've kind of given the good and the bad with Paul Molitor over recent years. Now, Rocco Baldelli gets his first managerial gig in the bigs. And he's embracing the statistics of the world, the StatCast of the world, and he's also embracing some of the we got to play baseball. It's he answers things with mixed bags at times. Casey, what do you think the expectations are there in Minnesota besides the obvious one if we want to win? But with Baldelli in his first year, what do you think they're going for with him?
I don't think there's a ton of pressure. Yeah, Baldelli seems a little Gabe Kapler-ish to me. Probably some of the good, some of the bad. Probably less of the bad. No, I don't think there's a whole lot of pressure on the Twins. But I think it's going to be the story all season is just going to be, can Sano bounce back? Could Buxton bounce back? And I know that there was a story that pretty much the day or the week that Baldelli was hired, he went down and met with both of those guys and kind of told them that they're going to be a big part of this team. Obviously, there was that Buxton BS last season at the end of the year when they held him out just for service time reasons, and they had to kind of get over that hump as well. That was really messy. It was incredibly anything that could go wrong for the Twins last year did go wrong, and I don't expect it to be that bad. And of course, with the offseason acquisitions that they have made, I don't think it'll be anywhere near that bad. But it's really the future of this team depends on getting Buxton and Sano back to a respectable level, and I think with that, the pressure is kind of more on them than Baldelli. So I think Baldelli will be a breath of fresh air because I didn't really like Paul Molitor either. So, but I don't think there's a whole bunch of pressure on the franchise.
Yeah, what are you thinking about Baldelli, Mo?
I mean, I like Baldelli a lot. He's obviously coming from a Tampa Bay Rays situation where they overachieved last year. He's not going to be bringing the opener, at least for most of his starts. I mean, maybe if Martin Perez, we know he's just not great right now, so that could be an opportunity there. There's not going to be, if he came in last year, if they decided, it's not working with Molitor after they made the wild card game, then there obviously would have been a lot of expectations. But now with what happened last year, like Casey said, with some bad luck and whatnot, there won't be a lot of expectations. And, he'll get a couple years to do something here, but he'll be able to – the one thing that helps him is Buxton's not going to have to bat at the top of the order. With the year that he had at the end of it in 2017, where everyone thought that this is the time that Byron Buxton's going to do it, just like Jose Barrios kind of did. It's not going to be a lot of pressure to do a lot with him and put him at the bottom of the order, and hopefully he shines down there. So not a ton of pressure, but we'll see what happens. When we just talked about the Indians and their bullpen, there could be a ton of pressure come August if they really are in it.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of leads to the next part is we've seen them making all these signings. They've got Scope, and they went and got Nelly Cruz, and you got Cron, and you already got Sano, and Polanco's coming back. There's a lot of offense there. Kepler and Rosario. It's very exciting. But the real question is the pitching going to be good enough? And that's been a problem, it seems like, every single year when we talk about these guys. Barrios, Gibson, Odorizzi, Pineda, Perez in the starting rotation. Not ideal. Mo, is there going to be good enough pitching, or are they going to to by home run derby?
I was hoping that they were going to make one more – they were going to sign one more guy.
I was hoping Keuchel.
Yeah, and say what you want about Keuchel. I mean, the whiffs per swing. I saw, our guy, Steel Cup of Joe, post kind of something like that last year, and it is going down, but he's a sinker ball pitcher, obviously ground ball guy, so that would have been fine for them, and it wouldn't have been a ton of pressure for him. He probably would have been the number 2 behind Barrios. I was hoping that. I mean, maybe he was pretty good last year. Maybe they somehow decide on Clay Buchholz if Perez really is that bad, but it sounds like they're stuck with that rotation. Odorizzi was pretty good last year, the second half. Kyle Gibson, the same, had a decent year, and then you don't know what you're going to get from Pineda coming off of Tommy John. I think ultimately it's good enough in that division to really get it done, but to take the next step, Barrios has to have a Cy Young year. I mean, it's not a hot take to say that. So, and I think their bullpen is a little bit underrated too. I like Blake Parker, I like Trevor May, I like Taylor Rogers. So I think it's good enough.
And what say you, Casey? Do they have enough pitching or no?
You guys mentioned them wanting to make one more move. I wanted them to make a bullpen move, and even if they somehow, of course, it would take some sort of magic. Get Craig Kimbrell, that would just be such the last. I talked about Marwin Gonzalez being the last piece of this team. That would really be the final touch on this team and really make them, I think. You would have to see that Pacoda prediction for Cleveland go way down, because I think Minnesota will be way up there at the top. I do think the starting rotation is okay. I remember in 17, I crapped on Kyle Gibson a lot just because I thought that guy was just absolute garbage. And I got in a fight with Twins fans about, he got on a hot streak, and I said, it was all a mirage. But I kind of had to, put my foot in my mouth last year because he was actually pretty solid last season. You mentioned Odorizzi was pretty solid as well. Maybe not 2-3 solids, and you more want them to be a 3-4 guy. But you mentioned if Barrios if he does take another step up and he is, takes a step towards elite, yeah, this rotation still could be okay. Pineda is obviously a huge question mark coming off the Tommy John, but we know what kind of stuff he has when he's really on, as good as it gets. And the number 5 guy I'm not really worried about, but do agree with you, Mo, that they're both been strong, but if they don't really have that ninth inning guy, at least we haven't seen a proven guy. If they went out and got a Kimbrel, geez, man, that would be amazing. But I don't know if they got the money for it.
Well, as I was just looking at on Roster Resource, their payroll is only $123 million. I know that sounds like a lot, but I think that leaves them a good chunk of change to maybe not get a Kimbrel, but get someone.
But I was saying Kimbrel's wants to see. Well, he's threatening to sit out a year. Obviously, we know he's not going to do that. But could he be enticed by, like, I know they probably wouldn't do this because they're not a huge market team. But if they said to him, "Hey, we'll give you 1 year, like $22 million," you know what I mean? It would make sense for them, but I just don't think they would do it.
Well, and I'm looking at it; they could backload the deal because after this year, they lose $8.5 million of Addison Reed, $8 million of Castro, not $8 million of Pineda, 7.5 of Scope, 8.8 of Odorizzi, and 8.2 of Gibson. That's a lot of change that they can it's off the books after this year. So that 123 drops down to like 90-ish real quick. They can go and give Kimbrel a deal where it's like 20 to 25 this year, but the next year you get like 30 for taking a friendly deal this year. It's an option if they really wanted to. I just don't know if they really want to.
Right.
All right, last but not least, we've kind of hinted at it already with our Indians bashing, and we'll give our full predictions in the end. But Mo, can they challenge the Indians this year?
I think because of that Indians bullpen outside of Brad Hand and the Indians offense behind, the Jose Ramirez and whatever Lindor is going to be, and Carlos Santana, yes, I do think they can. Will they win the division? I don't think. I know we're going to get to that later. I don't think so. What
about you, Casey? What do you think?
I think they definitely can compete. I have to mention, one of my loves here, outfield defense. It was bad last year without Buxton. They really didn't have a center fielder behind Buxton. Jake Cave was playing out there a lot. If Buxton can stay healthy and can stay, at least somewhat able to do anything at the plate, I think he makes such a difference in that outfield that, we talked about these guys, they don't have a rotation full with a lot of K guys. They're going to be putting balls in play. But if that outfield defense takes a step up, and obviously Buxton would be the easiest way to do that, they're going to help, save a lot of runs and make this whole team a lot better. So I think, everything that they've done all season says that I think they can compete. So I know we'll get into predictions later, but yes, the answer to your question is definitely yes.
And quickly, yes, for me too.
Okay, let's go to the White Sox. We're going to let Casey kind of free fall his first one. It's the whole Manny Machado debacle that happened. He was coming, then he wasn't, then he was, and he wasn't, and then he ended up going to the Padres. I'm just going to let you free flow the whole, that whole kind of 24 hours that happened after he signed with the Padres.
Yeah, I'm going to start even a little bit earlier than that. It's just kind of been, this rebuild has just been kind of a little tease and then a huge setback. And, I'll start with when Kopech came up last year, it was so exciting. And just to see him in the big league level and to see his stuff was awesome. And I got so incredibly excited. And I thought, hey, maybe the 2019 season will be a little bit fun. We'll have Eloy coming up. We'll have Kopech at the top of the rotation. At least they'll be watchable for the first time in a couple of years. And then, of course, the Kopech injury happens and it kind of that's feeling kind of sailed away. And then, the offseason started. I did not expect them to do anything in free agency at all. I just kind of thought they'd wait until the next offseason, even for the reasons that they should have been involved on a Harper and Machado. But I was incredibly excited when, they were the first team out of the gate that had any news on Harper and Machado. They were meeting him before the winter meetings, and it was kind of like, okay, here we go. It makes a ton of sense. If they can convince these guys, hey, we might have one rebuilding year in 2019, but we're going to be ready to go with Kopech and another year Eloy, another year Makata, and we'll be ready to compete in 2020. The Indians are free falling. The Twins were not really sure. I thought the argument was there to make these, two stud free agents of which we haven't seen since, an A-Rod. I got incredibly confident, and at first it was Bryce, and I thought, hey, that makes a lot of sense. He could be the face of a franchise. They put a Bryce Harper on the Michael Jordan statue at the United Center when he came out here. It was like, okay, they are all in. This is great. I think they're going to get Bryce Harper. And then the Machado stuff happened. That was kind of started by the Yonder Alonso signing when they brought in his brother-in-law for really no good reason because Jose Abreu is the White Sox first baseman. They've been playing with Daniel Palka and just trying to, using the designated hitter spot as a revolving door of getting some young guys at bats. I just didn't understand it. Why would you bring Yonder Alonso other than the only reason he is Manny Machado's brother-in-law? And I think 50% was probably the lowest my confidence ever got until the day. And you mentioned the 24 hours after the Machado signed with the Padres. It was just kind of a lot of head scratching. And I like Rick Hahn. I defend him a lot on Twitter. And I was just kind of looking for a reason for Hahn, for the franchise, on what happened, what went wrong. And the only thing I can come back and think of is they either got bad reports on the money that was out there. They did not believe if Machado's agent came out and said that he had 300 guaranteed. They just kind of were essentially calling his bluff, but they thought their deal was good enough, saying that there was 350 potentially in the contract, and they got a little bit, I think, too cute. And Machado, I think, just really wanted that guaranteed money. And, of course, I have to question it. If the White Sox knew that all he wanted was the money, why wouldn't they have just done it? It's kind of hard for me to believe that they wouldn't have had they known it, but that's just bad. That's bad decision making on their part. And I'm really just down on the whole thing. And then I guess, part of me, of course, the optimistic part was like, okay, then get back in the Harper camp. And then when, our boy Bob Nightingale came out and said that the White Sox weren't involved in the Harper stuff. Of course, I have to take that with a grain of salt, but it doesn't look like they're in on the Bryce Harper stuff, and that just pisses me off even further. And yeah, I'm really down. I look up and down this depth chart, and I don't see a lot of fun. Of course, I'm excited to see Eloy. I'm really high on Yohan Moncada, but the 2019 season seems like it's going to be a big drag, and it's just because we got blue balled. White Sox fans just got blue balled, and that's the only way that I can really refer it to. I was so excited for the potential of Manny Machado playing third base for the next decade here, and now we're stuck with Jake Berger, right?
Yeah. Jake.
Well, no, Nick Madrigal at second, Tim Anderson at short, Moncada at third, I think is what you got to hope for, or maybe Anthony Rendon next year. That's the only thing that I could say. Let's go, Bubba. We let him get that off his chest. Hopefully, he feels better, because now we're going to move on to some happy times, and that's Eloy Jimenez. Obviously it's time for him. It was time for him last year. Will he start the season with the team, or are we going to see a Chris Bryant, Vlad Jr. type 2-week, 3-week cycle in AAA?
Oh, we're seeing the cycle, boys. There's no doubt about that. That's the screwed up world we live in. Why can we have nice things? Why can White Sox fans have nice things after they just took Manny Machado from him? Like this is what's happening. This isn't even me trying to jab at Casey here. They're gonna flat out make Eloy wait, because Rick Hahn's gonna squeeze every penny out of this, and then bring him up and realize, hey, like Casey was saying, when Kopech came up last year, it was electric. The fans loved it, gave them hope. So why not bring Eloy up right away? Oh, because we got to save a few dollars. That's what's going to happen. The guy is awesome. He's going to be great. He's basically, if Vladdy wasn't around, he'd be the guy that everyone's talking about. So, yeah, he'll be here, but it's going to be a couple weeks.
Yeah, Casey, the same thoughts?
Yeah, he's definitely going to stay down. The PR move to make, and I actually saw somebody write an article on this today, is you give him a huge contract right now. I know that it would be incredibly bold, but it would just make White Sox fans really happy, especially because he would be there on opening day. And Hahn has only mentioned that we're going to spend the money eventually. Well, now we saw Nolan Arenado, and he's not going to be getting the money. So who are you giving this money to? It's becoming the craze, and I think it will be until that new CBA, that these guys are just going to extend until 2021. So now you're saying that the White Sox window is not even going to start till 2022. That's horrible news, and that's just what it feels like right now. And I think the PR move is to do that. I don't know if it's logically, and I'm probably speaking as a fan more than an analyst, but that would be a move that would at least please the fan base, because they are unhappy right now.
Yeah, the Evan Longoria, Ryan Braun type deal. Because when we thought, Bubba, we talked about it at the beginning when we first started our podcast, and all these trades were made. We said, and maybe you can correct us if we're wrong here, because you're a bigger White Sox fan than we are. I think we said 2020 is when they need to start really, pushing for a spot for AL Central title.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think that it sounds good. You know, it rolls off the tongue, 2020.
Right.
And then the fact that the Indians are probably going to be, you know,
Really
done-ish
bad.
if they're not. Yeah. You know, they're going to be losing some of these starting pitchers eventually, and the division's wide open. You know, we'll get to the Tigers and Royals. They're not going to be good for a very, very long time. So the division's wide open. I thought 2020 was going to be the year. Hopefully Kopech is back to 100%, but they do have to spend money eventually because the farm system can't fill out all 25 roster slots, and they need to bring in some of these gaps. And the payroll is so low because of the rebuild was successful. I mean, these prospects, not all of them are going to hit, but a good chunk of them are going to hit, and that's going to keep your payroll incredibly low. So go out and spend the rest of it on proven veterans that will help where your team needs it.
All right, let's get to this one. Will one of the young stars take the next step? The Rodon, obviously it would have been Kopech, but that sucks. Rodon, Ronaldo Lopez, or Giolito. We'll start with Casey and then go with Bubba.
I like Ronaldo Lopez a lot. He was been my guy since the Adam Eaton trade. I loved the stuff. You know, yeah, he's great when he has it. Doesn't always have it. I still think, you know, I trust Don Cooper and all of his work, and I think that he can figure out Ronaldo Lopez. I think that there is a guy that is going to take a step up. It is him. Rodon always worries me with the injuries, and I don't know, something about him just makes me always feel a little bit iffy. I think he's another guy that has great stuff, and when he's on, he's as good as anyone. But I worry about another injury creeping in or just a little bit of inconsistency. So, yeah, it's a lot of question marks. I didn't even get into Giolito, but obviously the confidence is a little bit lower on him. Most Sox fans, if you ask them, all their hopes are on Dylan Cease right now, and that he makes the rotation at some point this season because he's kind of the next great hype. The Kopech of last year, which I still think could happen, but yeah, I think we're going to see Irvin Santana in this rotation on opening day, and hopefully, he's a veteran presence, but this is again probably me more being a fan, and maybe you guys will talk me up a little bit out of this rut that I'm in, but I'm not incredibly confident about anyone in the rotation.
It's okay, Casey. I'm a Giants fan right now. I feel you. I feel it's rough,
but at least you won, Bubba.
Mr. Titletown, you stop talking.
Well, stop talking. I'm just saying, like you act like you're in the same rut as him. He's been in a rut since 2005.
It's been 5 years, okay? I figured it was like, but when it comes to the pitching, Lopez, Giolito, Rodon, I'm like Casey there. I really like Ronaldo Lopez. I like Carlos Rodon. It's just a matter of health with Rodon. The stuff's always been there. When he's on and healthy, he's striking out everybody. And Lopez might have the best overall pure stuff when it comes to movement and everything. So I really think they will. Lopez's second half numbers, outside of an occasional rough start, were like really, really good, much, much better than they're kind of in line with what you'd expect with him. So, I think they will make the next step. And like you said, Dylan Cease is down there. Dane Dunning's going to be up there at AAA. He's another good young arm that came over in that Washington trade as well. And when all else fails, you got Carson Fulmer and Dylan Covey sitting in the minors. So you have nothing to worry about there.
Yeah, I wish Ronaldo Lopez could take the next step. That fly ball percentage really just scares me a bit. You look at the whiff percentage in terms of swing strike with his slider, 17%. Maybe he can throw that a little bit more. That would be a plus for him. I've always been a Rodon guy, sort of like I'm still the driver of the John Gray train. And like I told Bubba last week, the transmission is really about to go on that one. The transmission went a long time, and that car's been in the junkyard for Carlos Rodon, which kind of sucked because, like Casey said, he's got great stuff. But I'm just not sure he's going to get there. Let's get to the last one. We'll start with Bubba. How good is this bullpen? I mean, they added a couple guys, and then they had a couple of their own guys with Jace Fry and whatnot on the team already. It seemed like it could be a sneaky, decent bullpen.
It is sneaky decent, and it's going to be sneaky decently traded at the trade deadline. That's what's good about it. Kelvin Herrera and Alex Colomé, that's what they're there for. They're there to see who wants them more because they both can be back-end guys. We've seen them close before. We've seen them be great setup men. I like them both. I think they're really, really good, but they're getting traded. It's that simple. Kelvin Herrera is going to be a free agent after this season. Alex Colomé, I believe, goes to arbitration here next year, so he's going to be a little cheaper. both definitely in play. Like Nate Jones, a good young arm. You mentioned Chase Fry. I like what they've done there, and I like what they've done in recent years. In reality, like they're not breaking the bank, and they kind of did it again this year by actually, they went and spent to get Kelvin Herrera, and they traded for Colomé. But I think both, if not one, but both might be gone at the deadline, and that's just getting them ready for 2020.
Yeah, go ahead, Casey.
Bubba, I will have to correct you. They did sign Herrera for 2 years. So the one thing that I will say about the bullpen, I think it's going to be a very good asset to this team. Probably better than it has been in years. The last 2 years, the White Sox's strategy has been to get a bunch of these guys on the 1-year deals and flip them at the deadline, and they've done a very good job of that's what they've really used to supplant their farm system. The thing about Herrera and Colomé, who obviously are proven guys that they brought in this offseason, is they are both signed with the team through this year and next year. So, yeah, it makes it a little bit more difficult to flip at the deadline. Of course, if they're good, I think guys will play for them. And then the rest of the bullpen are homegrown guys that are just kind of either pre-arb or I think almost all of them are pre-arb. So I don't think they're going to be moving any of those guys at that cheap. So I think the bullpen's good, and I think it's here to stay. Maybe you do move a Herrera if he does become their, a really good ninth inning guy. But excuse me. I think the strategy is a little bit different this year, though. I don't really expect them to flip these guys. And I think that kind of was part of, I think the White Sox did expect to land a Manny Machado. True. And that this was supposed to be the team that was going to, kind of maybe dabble around 500 this year, but really be ready to go next year. And that goes with that a bunch of these bullpen guys are signed through 2020 as well.
Yeah. I like the bullpen a lot. I think they will. If Herrera has a good year, I do think they will trade him a bit. The injury at the beginning of the season does hurt it a little bit because there's a possibility that he could be, correct me if I'm wrong, Casey, there's a possibility he could miss opening day. So that, Colomé will take the closer role at the beginning of that, but that's up in the air right now.
I don't know. I know that he had the injury at the end of the year for the Nats, and it was kind of lingering. So that's possible if you've heard that. I don't know if I have.
Yeah, okay.
All right, let's head to the last two bottom dwellers in the AL Central. We'll start off with the Detroit Tigers. Casey already hinted at it earlier. They're going to be bad for a little while. Hate to brag it to everybody here, but pretty bad. They did just get Harrison in there. You got Castellanos, Miggy Cabrera's swan song, the worst pitching rotation maybe in baseball. But let's just start it off. Casey, does Miggy have anything left in the tank this year?
God, I hope so. Just because he's such a treat to watch. I'll say yes. I'll be the optimist. I think the talent's still there. Obviously all he's got to do is play DH, and he could start banging those out of the park again. Injuries really took a toll on him last year. He had a long time to get refreshed, and I hope he does. And here's the hoping for a good 2019 for Miggy.
What about you, Mo?
I think he does. The question will always be can he stay healthy? If he stays healthy, he's probably going to bat close to 300 with call it 20 homers and 80 RBIs, something like that. Because but granted, he's got 5 years left at $154 million. Okay, that is takes him into his 40-year-old season in a rebuilding team. So you hope he has stuff left, but. This is not going to be a good ending, folks. I don't think it's going to be as bad as Pujols, but this isn't going to be a good ending.
When you wonder why certain teams just go through a bad rebuilding process, it's because you do contracts like that.
Well, at the time, the owner wanted to win, and they had to do it. So it's
we know the drill, and you sign guys past 35, 36. I think he'll be hitting just fine, but we're never going to get that Miggy of old. Kind of Casey was saying, please God, just don't make it bad. Make it pretty good. Give me 280 with 20 to 25 homers, and I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Mo, when and where do you see Nick Castellanos getting traded to?
I'm surprised it isn't done yet. I still think there's an opportunity there.
I heard the White Sox are looking for corner infield help and maybe
all right. Let's leave Casey out of this. I think obviously the best place for him to go would be Cleveland. He only has a year left, so it's not like they have to break the bank to get him. Whether they want to spend the little bit of money that he makes, he probably makes. I didn't even look it up. He probably makes $7 or $8 million.
Castellanos, I'll let you know.
Yeah. So it's probably not. It's not over 10 probably because he hasn't been this great like an Arenado, like a Donaldson, like a Betts, demanding all this arbitration money.
He's making 9.95 mil.
There you go. So I'm not bad at that. So it's perfect spot for the Indians because he can play third base for them. They can move Ramirez over to second and Kipnis to the outfield, or they can keep Castellanos' bad defense in left field. They can do a lot of things. They won't have to give up a ton for him, in my opinion. So I would the logical location for him would be to go to Cleveland. Outside of that, maybe I was thinking of maybe Atlanta or maybe Philly if they don't get Bryce Harper. That could be an opportunity for them to, at least for 1 year, hold out until they get Trout. So I'm surprised he's not gone yet. I think he's going to go somewhere at some point. It's got to be sooner rather than later for the Tigers to get some sort of return.
What do you think, Casey?
I like him in Tampa. Tampa's my spot for Castellanos. That would make a whole bunch of sense. And I could scare the crap out of you, Mo, and say, what if the Yankees got him and put him at first? But
everyone loves Luke in New York. Everyone loves him.
Yeah, that's true.
Just like Greg Bird.
Yeah, they love Greg Bird too. Yeah, exactly.
No, but my realistic answer is Tampa. I think that I've seen that a lot on a buzz on Twitter, and it makes a bunch of sense.
I like that, and that'd make my like secret crush on this podcast at Tampa Bay even better. So big fan of that. Will we see any of the young starters? They drafted Casey Mize last year. There's a handful of young options in the minor leagues: Daniel Norris, Matt Hall, Ryan Carpenter, Spencer Turnbull. But you got Funkhauser, you got Burrows. There's a lot of guys down there. Do we see any of the youngsters this year, Casey?
I'd say probably not, because what's the point? You're starting the clock on these guys. This is going to be 110 losses. Yeah. I mean, it's possible. It's going to be hard because the next team we talk about is going to be around there too, and they got to play each other 19 times. So, but this is going to be a bad team. I don't see why they would waste their efforts.
What say you, Mo?
I would say probably no as well. I think the only like Casey said, it would make sense. The only guy that could get there, I think, is Casey Mize if he really, really goes through the minors like some people think he is. And they could just decide, you know what, this kid's ready. Let's see what he's got. Let's give the fans something to root for in Detroit, and that may be a way to do it.
Yep, it's going to be rough. I don't think anybody comes up.
Yeah, it's going to be rough in Detroit, but let's get to a team that's going to be even more rough for. God bless Ned Yost. At least they won a World Series, and they got to two of them. It's the Kansas City Royals. They're going to be really bad this year. Is Mondesi – let's just get to it real quick. I know Bubba's answer, so let's start with Casey. Bubba, you can get on it after. Is Mondesi the real deal?
I think so. I like him a lot. He's incredibly versatile. I like him a lot. The numbers, the numbers I look at he's got some good barrel numbers. The walk rate, of course, you want to see a little bit higher, especially with a guy that's got some speed and that you would kind of want him to get some free passes. So he kind of uses that value up a little bit more. Maybe he does mature into that. I'll go into my normal thing about, who's going to protect him in the lineup, but I think that there is some natural talent there. I think that this is going to be what they are hoping is kind of the next building block, whether it's a trade piece or, if he's going to be around for the next Royals run, which probably won't be anytime soon. But no, I like him a lot. Love to see what you guys think about him.
He's a good young ball player. I'm looking forward to watching him. I think the hype train has gotten way too out of control on him. He's going to be good, but not as good. I guess what Mo's referring to as my response is I don't want him in fantasy where he's going. But real life, I can see the appeal you're speaking of. I just don't know if I'm a true believer in the power aspect of it. I need to see more of that. I know it's developed through the last few years between the minors and the pros, so maybe it is there. The speed's legit. There's no sugarcoating that. But it was only a season ago where they wanted to give him a shot and he couldn't hit a baseball, so he never got his shot. He made it work last year. Let's see how it works. Not facing September call-ups and everything like that. But it'll be fun to see. You mentioned the guy protecting him. With 35-year-old Alex Gordon probably is not the ticket, but we'll see what happens there. But I'm excited to see him. A team as bad as the Royals needs a player like this, but he'll be one of like four guys that steal 30-plus bases on this team probably.
31-year-old Alex Gordon wasn't the ticket either. So yeah, of course, fantasy. I think there was not 90% of the fantasy Twitter out there that was, especially where his ADP is going, was out on him. I hope for Royals fans that he is a good player. Again, like Bubba said, I'm worried about the power a little bit. I know you mentioned the barrel percentage. That's awesome. There's too much swinging miss in that bat. 18% swinging strike last year. He doesn't make a ton of contact. I'm a little bit worried about him. Like you said, Casey, if he could get that walk rate like up to 6% even, it's at like 3.8 right now. If he could get that up to like 6% and get on base a little bit more so he could, really get to like 50 stolen bases, and still bat like 250-ish, then that would work. But he's going to get the chance to do a full season. We saw 275 at-bats last year. Let's see what happens with a full sample size. I'm not sure. I think they don't have a choice. They let Alcides Escobar play shortstop for them in the last couple of years, which was terrible. So they're going to give this guy a shot. It took too long, but they're going to give this guy a shot, and we'll see what he's got. All right, this one is an interesting one because when he was signed, I think he was decent. Can they, Bubba, we'll start with you. Can they find a way to get rid of Danny Duffy's contract?
Yeah, it's really simple. They pay for it. That's how they. I don't know how they're going to do it. He's owed 15.25, 15.25, and 15.5 for the next 3 years.
At least, you know what I mean?
Yeah. If they pay a nice chunk of it and don't want a hefty return back, sure. I still think there's something to like with this kid. I think what the best thing would be for them is to have him have a good year this year, then flip him this offseason with 2 years left on the books. That's where I see the best case scenario for the Royals. Keep him away from all drive-throughs. He'll be just fine. But I do think he's a good young arm. I don't think they'll get rid of him this year.
Casey?
The way he can really succeed in 2019 is if he faces every game against the White Sox, because I believe he just completely owns the White Sox.
He was that's how darling against the White Sox.
That's how the Royals can up his value. But no, there's I don't know who's taking $50 million on this guy. Yeah, he was good when he signed it. I don't know if he was as good as the contract, if he was worthy of the contract that they gave him, especially with the way the franchise was headed. I mean, we all knew this was going to end, when the Hosmer, Moustakas, Kane contracts were up. So I don't know why the Royals decided to do that. Maybe they were hoping that he could be either the veteran leader or a trade piece as they move down the line of the rebuild. But no, that was a really bad read. And, the numbers don't look great last year. Maybe he does bring them down a little bit. But no, that contract's going to hurt them quite a bit during this rebuild. But yeah, you pay it, you get out of it, and then you start over. So that's what they'll do.
Yeah, if they can eat half of it, that would be great. I don't think there's any way they somehow get out unless he pitches well and they can sell high. Like if he's got a 3.5 ERA and it's into middle of June and they haven't traded him yet, you fire Dayton Moore right now because you got to sell high on that guy if he starts off the season strong. We all know Dayton Moore tried to go to Atlanta a couple years back, and the owners didn't allow it. So we'll see how he handles this rebuild right now. This is an interesting one, Casey. We'll start with you. Give me the year they begin to compete again, and that can mean they win 80 games. We didn't really have kind of a metric here, but I guess make it up yourself.
Yeah, I mean, there's not even really a whole bunch of prospects to really like. I don't know what they're hanging their hat on. It's, the Royals went through a 25-year rebuild, as it seemed like that, before they did go to back-to-back World Series. But let's throw out 2026. I don't know. There's nothing. There's no reason. I'm just pulling numbers to the head.
I know.
One thing I do want to say with the Royals, though, that I at least haven't mentioned yet, is I am excited for the stolen bases that Bubba mentioned. Yep. I think that they'll at least be fun bad. I think the outfield is going to be really good. They're going to be, Coffin's such a gigantic outfielder. They're going to be making diving catches and awesome catches all the time and stealing a bunch of bases. So at least they'll be fun bad. I kind of want to watch the Royals just to see the fun with all the speed on the team. So at least there's that, and that's a lot better than the Tigers. So they can at least hang their hat at that.
Yeah, I predicted they were going to steal over 200 bases this year. They're going to be interesting. Like Pacoda actually has them winning like 70 games this year, 72. They have them in third place. I don't think they'll be that. I don't believe that, but it's possible because, like you guys said, the division's that bad. I'd say 2000. Give me 24 because the one saving grace I'll give them is the last draft to draft and a half. They've been decent. All their big prospects are like in single A and double A for the most part. So it's going to take them a while, and they'll probably won't all hit, but they've racked up draft picks of late. If they can do that again for another draft class or two, they'll be able to turn it around here in, I'd say, 5-6 years. And then you get that Danny Duffy money off the books. You'll have all these guys opting out. I'll say 25. It still doesn't make me feel comfortable. I'll say 25.
Yeah, I'll go $1. Kind of price is right. I'll go under only because everyone in that division is pretty much rebuilding. Like the Indians are going to be. I'm not saying they're still going to have Ramirez. They're still going to have Lindor. They're still going to have the Clevingers and the Shane Biebers and the Carrascos. But the Indians aren't. They're going to be not rebuilding, but they're not going to be a 95-win team in a couple of years. Who knows what the Twins will be? Because they're kind of. They don't have a ton of tremendous guys unless Royce Lewis is the number one pick. And then we've talked about the White Sox and the Tigers already. So there's a possibility that they could get there quicker than we think, but it's going to depend on how those lower guys develop this year, like you say, Bubba. So it's tough to be an incomplete, but I'm going to go the price is right, $1.
Yeah, if they compete sooner than later, it's because the division's that bad, and they might be the worst division winner in a playoff series. Like just wave the white flag and walk away. Yeah. All right, let's do quick predictions. We don't have to go too deep into this. We can kind of rapid fire it. Casey, or actually real quick, I want to read off. Pacoda has the Indians at 96 and 66, Twins in second with 82 wins, then the Royals at 72, White Sox at 70, and the Tigers at 67. So 3 bottom feeders as we expected, but kind of a weird say order there to me. Casey, who do you have winning the AL Central?
I'm still sticking with the Indians. Nowhere near that 96 that Pacoda has them, 87-ish. And I'm not ready to say that the Twins will even win the wild card either, just because of the talent in the other two divisions. But I am not ready. I think the starting pitching is good enough for the Indians to still go with them. So I won't be too bold here.
What about you, Mo?
Indians win. I think they're going to win 91 just because the bottom 3 teams are so bad that they'll probably win. They play them 19 times each. They'll probably end up winning literally like 40 of those games, or if they'll go 40 and 17. That might be even lower than it should be. But the Twins will be in the high 80s. They'll be right there. So I got the Indians still.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Indians. I don't want to do it. I think the Twins are going to give them all they can handle, though. I agree with Casey's point, though. It's going to be hard for a wild card team to come out here because I love the Astros, the A's. You never know what the other teams in the West, and you obviously have the Yankees and Red Sox. One of them is getting a wild card, and the Rays are going to be there too. So it's going to be hard to see the Twins get one. I'd love to see the Twins win the division. I hope I'm wrong on this. When we do our final season predictions, maybe I'll flip the script, but right now I'm with you guys, and I'm going Indians on this. But
we'll get a bullpen guy at the deadline. That's what they got to do.
It's going to be close. Casey, who do you think will be your biggest surprise team? Either it could be good or bad in this division.
I think the Twins are the only way I can go here because I think the 3 bottom feeders will just be bottom, so I don't think anyone's really going to surprise about them. The Twins are going to be good, and I think, if they either get a bullpen guy before this offseason ends or at the deadline, I think that they're going to be definitely in the running with the Indians all season. So I would take that as a surprise because even though we're saying that we expect it now, we weren't a couple months ago.
What about you, Mo?
Oh, man, I can't go Twins on this. So I'm going to – maybe this won't break Casey's heart. I'm going to go White Sox. I think Eloy comes up and is tremendous. I think Abreu is going to have a much-needed bounce-back year. That lineup will be a little bit better. Hopefully Moncada will get there because I was always a Moncada guy as well. I thought the trade worked for both teams, obviously. And unfortunately, Kopech with his issue and Moncada with how he's played. So I'm going to go White Sox, and that bullpen is decent. I'm going to say that the White Sox win 75 games in that division.
Yeah, I'm going to go White Sox too. I really like that offense. And it comes down to can Rodon, Lopez, even Giolito, can one of them or two of them really turn that corner? If they can, it seems to be a lot better than people think. And they, by no means am I saying they're going to be like a pennant contender, but I'd take even the over on the 75. I'd say they get closer to 500 if those pitchers show up there. Yeah, bold prediction time. Step up.
Wow.
I do like the White Sox, and that's where we'll see how they want to spend money next year, but they're close. Again, 2020 was the way. If we're a year early like other teams, you got to get to 500 first. So I think they get closer than we think.
You guys are too into your guest.
Yeah, no, trust me, I gave you enough Machado crap already.
We would have said this if you weren't here.
I was going to ask you when they're going to get rid of John Jay since they don't need him anymore, but I wasn't going to go there. Last but not least, Casey, who do you think is the biggest surprise player this season out of the Central?
Yeah, so here's my time to be optimistic about my team. It is Yohan Moncada is my pick for the biggest surprise player. I think that he does he takes a huge step up. I think the pressure's off of him. Eloy's the newest shiny object in the dugout, and he'll be getting all the pressure. And I think Moncada, position move might help him a little bit. They talked about maybe his focus is able to change a little bit, moving from second to third. I think we're due for a Moncada, a really, really good year out of Moncada. The other surprise player I want to name, though, is I think Trevor Bauer is your American League Cy Young Award winner, and we talked about that in the Indians section. So I think both of those guys are my surprise guys in the AL Central.
I dig it. What about you, Mo?
I think a surprise guy could be Matthew Boyd. He had a nice second half last year. He just couldn't figure it out on the road. I mean, 2.63 at home, 5.89 on the road. He's been, he was a lot better, obviously, like I said, in the second half. And there's a possibility he could sneak up on some guys. I mean, I know he's on a bad team, probably won't get a ton of run support, but I just don't see a ton of other guys. Like, maybe I'm going to steal your thunder. I'm not going to pick a Billy Hamilton or someone like that because we know what Billy Hamilton is. He's going to steal a lot of bases, but he's not going to get on base a ton to do that, or else he'd steal 150 if he could get on base. So I like Matt Boyd a lot.
I'm going to go Max Kepler. I know it might not be as big a surprise because people talk about him more than most, but I really think he takes that next step. You look at his stats, and each year he gets better and better. He's still learning the game. All the StatCast tools jump off the page. I think he's going to be in a close to 30 or 30 more home runs this year. There's a lot to like there with Max Kepler. So that'll be my guy, and he'll be a big factor on why the Twins might win the AL Central. Might win it. Okay. But all right, Casey, we appreciate you joining us, man. AL Central preview. We'll definitely have to have you on again later this year. But any closing Central thoughts or anything before we let you go?
No, I think this is kind of maybe the last year of the Indians window, and I don't know what they do with their stars, but it doesn't seem like they want to spend a lot of money. Obviously, they don't draw much in attendance, but I think we're going to start to see a change in 2020, and the Twins and the White Sox are probably going to be obviously the two contenders for the division in 2020. But I think we got one more year left of the Indians.
Yep, one more year left. But thanks for joining us, Casey, and we will be in touch and catch you later.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
See you, Casey.
Oh, no problem. All right, Mo, let's talk a little fantasy baseball. We'll go through it pretty quick because, in reality, relievers, yeah, they are what they are. There's a handful of good ones, but a handful of So I'll let you kick us off as you are the one in charge of the relievers.
Yeah, so we'll do our in or out here. The first one, he hasn't signed yet. We don't know where he's going to sign or when he's going to sign. So he's obviously starting spring training late. Craig Kimbrell at their current ADP, I believe he's 80-ish. Are you in or out on him?
74 right now.
Yeah,
just the month of February. But I haven't taken him anywhere. We'll get to where I'm targeting relievers at. I'm not going to run. If you're looking to get a top end guy and you didn't get Diaz or Tryon, I have no problem taking Kimbrell. I understand the scare with the rumors of him saying he might sit out, but it's like 95% of the teams that sign him, he will be the closer. There's just like 2 or 3 teams that won't have him as the closer, which is crazy. So I'm still in on it. I just wasn't going to have him to begin with.
Yeah, I'm not a big draft closers guy early. Like I mentioned to you before the podcast, I ended up waiting on a guy, and I ended up getting Jose Alvarado in the 10th round. So I was kind of excited about that with Tampa. So I'm excited about him. I'm going to wait on guys like him. Your guy, Will Smith, maybe a Jordan Hicks. We'll see what happens there in St. Louis. But I'm not going to be in on Craig Kimbrell, especially that early and not knowing where he's going to go and really not having a full spring training. The next guy I put on here is I was out on him last year, and it's murky this year too because that bullpen's so good. It's Corey Knebel.
Yeah, this one's a tough one. I'm kind of buying back into it just for the fact of what we saw him do in the postseason. Looked a lot more like that guy that we fell in love with last year. And you can get him at pick 132 right now, which, it doesn't scream crazy, but he's going after guys like Ken Giles. He's going after Wade Davis, Kirby Yates, Josh Hader, Jose Leclerc. He's at least the double-digit reliever off the board right now. He's way down there. I know it's murky because you got Hader, you got Jeffers. They might take a little from him, but go read Alex Fast's article on how many relievers got saves last year. And if you can get a guy that can get you 15 to 20 or more saves with his strikeout upside, his overall peripherals, sign me up.
Yeah, I like Knebel this year. I think he fixed some of the stuff that I was worried about in 2017. He really did. It was at the end, so I was half right about him because he didn't do exactly what he did in 2017. But by the end, he fixed his walk rate. The K rate stayed where it was. Swing and strike rate stayed where it was. So I'm back in on him pretty much. I don't know how many shares I'll have just because the Josh Hader and the Jeremy Jeffers thing. I read that article by pitchers on Pitchers List by Alex. So it was very interesting. But I won't be shy to take him if the opportunity presents itself. For sure. The third one we got here is Raisel Iglesias. And the reason why I put him on there, I love Raisel. His manager has sort of talked about him pitching maybe in multiple innings or in early inning situations that maybe the 1, 2, 3 hitters are up or the 2, 3, 4 hitters, and he wants to bring him in to get out of that and force other bullpen guys to face the bottom of the order. So that is a possibility there. So are you scared away by his manager's comments?
No. If you're scared of losing some saves, that's always an option. At the same time, unlike Knebel, there's not a multitude of guys there. It might happen a handful of times, but more often than not, if he's pitching 2 innings, it's the 8th and the 9th. Like, I know there'll be times it might be the 7th and the 8th or whatever. It's going to happen, but it's not going to cost him like 15 saves like it could. Like, you wouldn't be shocked if Knebel or something just all of a sudden didn't work because Haters, Jeffers, and him just split them all, and it just happened. But with Iglesias, he's still going to get like 80, 85% of the save chances, I would imagine. And on a Reds team that should be competitive this year, it doesn't bug me at all. And the way I look at it also is if he's in these high leverage situations, yes, he might give up an extra home run or two, but that's more strikeouts. That's more of the peripheral stats you're looking for out of a reliever. So now he turns into a Josh Hader or an Archie Bradley, but more save chances. So I actually like it a lot. I took him in the Barfleet draft as one of my closers when I kind of faded starting pitchers early because they were all running off the board. I jumped on a couple relievers earlier, and I made a point to get a guy like Iglesias because if I'm not going to have all the starters innings and it's a daily moves league, I want a guy like Iglesias I can put in there that might get me, a closer that'll get me 6 or 7 innings a week in 3 or 4 appearances compared to a guy going out there 3 times for 3 innings. I'll take that advantage.
Yeah, I hear you there. I am interested to see when that actually happens. I know different managers have come out and said that they were going to let pitchers go in that route where we're going to pitch him in the most high leverage situations. Obviously, closers they're a dime a dozen, and they are trained to pitch in the 9th inning and maybe for an out or 2 in the 8th at times. We've seen Kimbrell have problems with that in Boston. We've seen other closers have problems with that. So that it'll be interesting to see when that first happens. But I think, again, it's another guy I will still be in on. I mean, if I had to choose between him and Doolittle, I know Doolittle's on a better team, but he just doesn't stay healthy. I'd have to choose Iglesias. Would you do the same?
I'd choose Iglesias, yes, over Doolittle.
Yeah. So, and then right before him is Felipe Vasquez, who I like a lot too.
I like him a lot. Yeah, I'd take Vasquez.
I would probably take him over Iglesias, and then like Jose Leclerc's after him, Josh Hader's after him. Not as many saves, but he's going to get you a ton of Ks. Kirby Yates, the Wade Davises of the world. So it's an interesting one. I like Kirby Yates a lot. I wouldn't take Wade Davis over him, even though he's going about 20 picks after him. And then as we continue here. So that's in or out. We're kind of in on Knievel and Iglesias. The Edwin Diaz expectations: 57 saves last year on a okay Mariners team. Now he's in a tougher division, in my opinion, with a better team. Your expectations for him are?
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's just be real about this. Edwin Diaz is very, very good. I'm not going to say he's not very, very good. But yes, he's on. Like, one thing I like when I look at closers I'm trying to look at is I actually prefer closers on mediocre to bad teams, because when they do win their 60 to 75 games, they're usually close. Those are called safe situations. When it comes to the likes of the Mets, yeah, they might win some close games, and now Pacoda doesn't want to work. That's outstanding. But like you mentioned, that tougher division, and in the grand scheme of things, he can still be just as good as last year. He's not saving 57 games. It's not happening. We don't see that very often. It's like maybe once or twice a decade thing we see. Like Eric Gagne did it. Kenley Jansen did it. Kimbrel's been pretty close to doing stuff like that, but it's such a small amount that you can name him like that. His peripherals will be good, like always. He's a strikeout monster. His stuff is great, but he's not going to be elite, and that's why I'm taking guys like Treinen. If I'm taking a guy early, I'm taking Treinen a round or two later. I'm just not jumping for Diaz, basically.
No, I'm not jumping for him either. I like Treinen a lot. I liked him I didn't think he'd do exactly what he did last year, which has become basically a top 3 closer. But I did like Treinen a lot last year. I also like Blake Parker, and he wasn't great. So I'm not jumping for Diaz. I do think that a lot more of the games will be close, especially the divisional games, because you do have the Phillies, you do have the Braves, and you do have the Nationals in your division. So it's not. And the NL is great as a whole, as we talked about with Pacoda. So it's not like he's on, the Indians, where they're going to play 3 really bad teams and a mediocre team with a Brad Hand, and Brad Hand's going to pitch a ton. But maybe because of the offense, they won't save as many games. So there's a lot of different scenarios. But yeah, I'm not jumping. I won't own Edwin Diaz anywhere. I won't. Your thoughts on Kenley Jansen? Do we trust?
I won't be taking him. I don't, and it's nothing to do with his heart. I trust him. If they're clearing him to play, he's playing. It's just where he's going in the draft. I like him. I know he's not going as high as he was, but it's just like, I'm going to take Blake Treinen a little bit ahead of him, or I'm just going to pass on Kimbrel and Jansen and Chapman, and then go down to the Hands, Osunas, Vasquez's of the world. So it's kind of where the drafts has flowed so far. I'm not really going for a closer at that point. It's nothing against what I think he can do this year. I just think there's a lot of closers that are going to be very similar to him a few rounds later.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to hate. I'm not worried about the heart thing. You would have known about if it was much worse than it was, if it had happened. But if he drops, maybe around the 90, like right now, I think the highest he's getting picked is 87, according to NFBC in February. So if he drops closer to there, and I'm there might be a possibility in me taking him, because obviously the Dodgers are going to be very good.
Yeah, you get him at a good value. I could see it. I'm just not reaching for him at all.
Yep, I completely agree. Are we back on Roberto Osuna? Obviously, he's on a much better team than he was when Toronto, even though a couple of years ago they were good. Are we back in on Roberto Osuna, or are we worried about maybe Ryan Presley taking over?
I'm back in, and that's why I just wanted to bring him up. And I'm not reaching for him again. It's only 6 picks after Kenley. But it's one of those, I'd rather have Osuna instead of Kenley in that situation. And a lot of it has to do with, I think we're getting a value on him. I know when we did this preview last year, Mo, both you and I thought this guy was right outside the top 1 or 2 closers in the game. Mm-hmm. And then he got his suspension, and that's a whole other story for another day. We've talked about it enough. He's playing baseball now. That's all we have to worry about. And he's on a really good team that's going to win close to 100 games again. So that's probably 60 to 70 save chances, maybe a little less because they kick the shit out of teams. But he's really, really good. And I agree, Presley's really, really good, and it might take a few. But I think 35 is a really good floor for Osuna with some upside. If I have to say a guy that I see being this year's Edwin Jackson, Osuna wouldn't surprise me. So I wanted to bring it up, Edwin Diaz. I wanted to bring it up just for the fact that this guy was going higher in drafts last year. People talked about him a lot higher last year, and he's just kind of sitting there. He's going after a guy like Brad Hand on an Indians team we just talked about that's going to be kind of messy. So I like Osuna a lot. I just don't if I'm going to reach, he might be the top reach for me at the position.
Are you worried about? And again, it sucks that we you don't know about I'm not going to comment about any of that, but you worried about his K percentage dropping last year, or is it just kind of an odd year with what happened?
I'm not going to buy too much into that. I know he was still getting the job done. He still had a 2.37 ERA. The K drop is staggering. That was quite the drop from 33 to 21. But I'm going to take that with a grain of salt for now. And if worse comes to worse, he had a 2.7% walk rate, which is not horrible. And he's going to a team where they know how to make pitchers excel at the highest level. So I'll let that one go for now.
Yeah, because it peaked, up in 2017. Really, it came back down to the 30%. But it ended last season at 22%. So we'll have to really monitor that as the season goes along. All right, so player debates here. We got a couple. We were already both taking Blake Treinen over Edwin Diaz. Kenley Jansen or Aroldis Chapman?
Give me Kenley. I'll take Kenley Jansen because Chapman, multiple things. I don't like him getting so big as he's getting. It might not affect him, but with that whipping motion he throws with getting that bulk, he scares me. Plus, they have like 4 of the closers. So if he needs a day off, or I think he's more likely to get days off if he's kind of got a bump in the road, it might be a lefty-righty type game. I don't think he's in there as much as people think he is.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's one of the main points is there's just too many guys in that bullpen for him to probably get to 30 saves. I think he'll likely probably get to around, maybe the 2017-22. And also, I'm a little bit worried about that walk percentage. Did go up last year, and he had some control problems. I know K's went up, but he had some control problems, and I'm a little bit worried about that. So I would take Kenley Jansen as well. And let's talk about the only guy in the Indians bullpen, Brad Hand versus Felipe Vasquez. What say you?
Give me all of Felipe Vasquez. I know you like him. I like him. This guy is the guy to get this year if you missed that first 5 or 6 guys because a choice or just happened. He's a strikeout monster. His whip and ERA are outstanding. He's on a Pirates team that are going to win a lot of close games when they win. He's going to be in a lot of great situations against some other I guess the NL Central is going to be good, but not like scary good at certain times. So I like Velasquez a ton this year. He's one of my favorites to target.
Yeah, I would take Velasquez as well. And the one thing I hope that the Indians don't do, which I think they might have to, is Brad Hand's going to pitch a lot. Yep. He is really going to pitch a lot. It's something to monitor late in the season that if he does pitch a lot and his arm's a little taxed, what really happens? He hasn't been in a playoff race. Obviously got traded there last year, but they had Cody Allen still. So even though Cody Allen wasn't himself, Brad Hand was there. And now he's got a full season of being the guy in a playoff race for a team that has World Series aspirations. So I'm a little bit worried about the ending of the season, depending on how much they actually pitch him. But either way, even if that wasn't the case, I'd take Vasquez. I like him a lot. Is there anyone you're targeting really late? Maybe they're not a closer yet, or they're fighting for a closer job. I'm not going to give an ADP sort of like we've done with other things. Maybe just a couple guys you're targeting late.
Well, like we talked about Leclerc, Yates, and Alvarado before. They're not super late. A couple, if people aren't paying attention in your leagues, I'm not saying they're lights out, but you're getting them super late. Greg Holland and Hunter Strickland are late in like every draft room you go in right now. So pay attention to that one. You should be drafting them a lot sooner. The other guys I'd be looking at, I like AJ Minter as long as the health stays okay. I think he's a good guy to target there in Atlanta, like a Michael Givens for Baltimore. Those are a couple of interesting ones because they have high K upside and will sprinkle in some saves for you. And then, I don't know, the Boston situation tilts me. But those are kind of 2 of the guys I'd be looking at outside of Strickland and Holland that late in the draft.
Yeah, I'm a Matt Barnes guy. I think I said that Matt Barnes was going to be the closer next year in like August last year. So I'm a Matt Barnes guy. I think that he is going to eventually win the job. I just don't think you can trust Ryan Brazier this quick. All of a sudden he comes out of nowhere. We're going to name him the closer. I think it's Matt Barnes' job to lose. He has to be really, really bad for him to lose that job. And the other one that I have, I like Trevor May a lot in Minnesota. I do think he'll probably win that job too. Hopefully they name him right off the bat and don't split it with him and Blake Parker. Is Trevor Rosenthal. He hit 99 on the gun today. He's coming back off a year off because of, I'm pretty sure it was Tommy John surgery. And the Nationals got a deal there, and we all know Sean Doolittle's injury history. So if you've got room on your roster for a guy like Trevor Rosenthal, I think that would be a great buy. Because he's going to get 10 to 15 saves this year. It's going to happen.
I like it. So there you go, wrapping up our last fantasy baseball prediction or preview, positional preview. We'll have more fantasy baseball talk as the preseason and spring training goes along. But Mo, most importantly, episode 100, my friend. It's been fun.
Yeah.
We got our third full baseball season ahead of us, which is pretty crazy to think about. And the spring training hubbub starting up. Hopefully get Harper signed soon. But any final words on episode 1?
I forgot the champagne. I had champagne. I forgot it. And it's like, I don't know where.
I'd say your wife probably took it.
She probably drank it already, yeah.
Or you popped at the last World Series or Super Bowl or something.
It's 11:45. I don't have to work tomorrow, so I'll probably go have like a whale's tail, Cisco whale's tail, pale ale, or maybe one or two, and watch the rest of basketball, whatever I got to watch. But yeah, it's been fun, and another big year. We're gonna have a ton of guests, and it'll be fun. I'm excited.
Yep, most definitely. So everybody, if you can give us a rating and review on iTunes, much appreciated. Help quite a bit. And Mo's on Twitter at Boston_Mo. I am at BDintric, and the podcast at Around Bases Pod. It's been awesome. And this was Around the Base with Bubba and Mo, episode 100, AL Central preview with Casey Boguslaw in the books. Catch you later.
See ya.